The phone buzzed on my nightstand, its screen glowing like an accusation in the dark. My parents' names flashed, Mom and Dad, a single contact, as if they'd fused into one unrelenting force. I knew what they wanted before I even answered. Another $5,000, the price of their love, wired straight to their account to keep my sister afloat. I was 30, single, and scraping by in a one-bedroom apartment in Chicago, my savings drained from years of family loans that never came back. My sister, Lila, 25 and perpetually unemployed, lived with our parents in their sprawling suburban home, her dreams of being an artist funded by my overtime shifts at the hospital. I was a nurse, not a bank, but to them, I was both. Every month, the same call. Lila needs supplies, or Lila's got a gallery showing, but we're short. I'd send the money, my resentment growing like a tumor, but I couldn't say no. They were family. Family doesn't abandon you. That night, I answered the call, my voice tight. "What is it now?" I asked, already picturing Lila's latest masterpiece, another abstract mess of paint that no one would buy. "We need $5,000, Mom said, her tone clipped, like I was a cashier holding up her line. "Lila's got a chance to study with this famous artist in New York, but the deposit's due tomorrow." I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. "Tomorrow? You're joking. I don't have that kind of money lying around." "You always find a way," Dad chimed in, his voice heavy with expectation. "You're the responsible one, Emma. You've always taken care of us." The words stung because they were true. I'd been the responsible one since I was 15, when I started working part-time to help with bills after Dad's construction business tanked. Lila, meanwhile, was the golden child, her every whim indulged while I was expected to pick up the pieces. I stared at the cracked ceiling of my apartment, my heart pounding. "I can't," I said, the words foreign on my tongue. "I'm done." Silence. Then Mom's voice, sharp as a blade. "Done? You don't get to be done, Emma. We're family." I hung up, my hands shaking. It was the first time I'd ever said no. The first time I'd chosen myself. But I didn't sleep that night, haunted by the fear that I'd just burned the only bridge I had to the people who raised me. The next morning, I woke to a text from Dad. "Come to the house this weekend. We need to talk." No apology, no softness, just a summons. I almost didn't go, but guilt is a powerful leash. By Saturday, I was driving the familiar hour-long route to their house in Naperville, my stomach knotted with dread. The cul-de-sac looked the same, manicured lawns, my parents' house looming at the end like a monument to my childhood. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked inside. Lila was sprawled on the couch, sketching on a tablet I'd paid for 2 Christmases ago. Mom and Dad sat at the kitchen table, their faces set like stone. "Sit," Dad said, pointing to a chair like I was a disobedient child. I sat, my purse clutched in my lap. "What's this about?" "You've been selfish," Mom started, her eyes narrowing. "Lila's got a real shot at something big, and you're holding her back." "Holding her back?" My voice rose, cracking. "I've been paying for her life for years. Rent, groceries, her art supplies. I'm drowning, and you don't even care." "You're jealous," Lila said suddenly, sitting up. Her voice was soft but venomous. "You've always been jealous because I'm doing something meaningful, and you're just a nurse." The room spun. A nurse. As if saving lives was nothing. As if my 12-hour shifts, my aching feet, my sleepless nights meant less than her half-finished canvases. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to defend me, but they didn't. Dad just folded his arms. "You need to step up, Emma. We're counting on you." I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "No, I'm not your ATM anymore. Lila can get a job. You can sell this house if you're so desperate. I'm done." Mom's face twisted. "If that's how you feel, then you're not welcome here. Get out." The words hit like a slap. I froze, waiting for her to take it back, but she didn't. Lila smirked, and Dad looked away. I grabbed my purse and walked out, the door slamming behind me. In the car, I cried. Ugly, wrenching sobs that left me gasping. They were my family, but they'd chosen Lila over me. Again. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. I'd given them everything, my money, my time, my love, and they'd thrown me out like trash. But something else stirred in me, faint but growing, relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying their weight. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew one thing. I was free. The days after the fight were a blur of silence. My phone stayed quiet. No calls, no texts, not even an email to soften the blow. I'd been erased from my family's life as easily as a stain scrubbed from a countertop. At work, I threw myself into my shifts, focusing on patients who needed me, their gratitude a small balm for the ache in my chest. But every night, alone in my apartment, the weight of their rejection settled deeper. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The bare fridge, the overdue bills stacked on my counter, the way my savings account had dwindled to almost nothing. I'd been so busy funding Lila's dreams that I'd neglected my own. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a master's in nursing, but every spare dollar had gone to them. Now, with no one to save but myself, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. A week later, I got a call from my cousin, Sarah, who lived a few towns over. "Emma, what the hell happened?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Aunt Linda and Uncle Tom are telling everyone you abandoned them." I laughed, a hollow sound. "Abandoned them?" "They kicked me out because I wouldn't pay for Lila's latest art scheme." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "That's messed up. You know they've been enabling her forever, right? They're not going to stop until she crashes." "I know," I said, my throat tight. "But I can't keep bailing them out. I'm done." "Good for you," Sarah said. "You deserve better. If you need anything, I'm here." Her words were a lifeline, the first real kindness I'd felt in weeks. I started reaching out to other relatives, old friends, anyone who might understand. Most were shocked, but a few, like my Aunt Karen, weren't surprised. "Your parents have always put Lila first," she said over coffee one afternoon. "It's not right, but it's who they are." Hearing that hurt, but it also clarified something. This wasn't about me failing them. It was about their choices. I started therapy, a luxury I'd never allowed myself before. My therapist, Dr. Nguyen, helped me see the pattern. I'd been conditioned to believe my worth was tied to what I could give. Breaking that cycle felt like learning to walk again. Meanwhile, I heard through Sarah that Lila had moved to New York anyway, funded by a loan my parents took out against their house. I felt a pang of guilt. Maybe I could have helped one last time, but it passed. They'd made their choice, and I had to make mine. At work, I started picking up extra shifts, not out of desperation, but ambition. I enrolled in an online master's program, using my evenings to study instead of worrying about my parents' demands. For the first time, I was building something for me, but the hole where my family used to be still ached. 3 months after the fight, I got an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Mom, handwritten, which was rare. My heart raced as I opened it, hoping for an apology, a bridge back to them. Instead, it was a single page, her cursive sharp and angry. "You've turned your back on us, Emma. Lila's struggling in New York, and we're drowning in debt. If you'd helped, none of this would have happened. Don't expect to come crawling back." I sat on my couch, the letter trembling in my hands. The audacity of it, the way they blamed me for their choices, lit a fire in me. I didn't cry this time. I folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer, and vowed to stop hoping for their approval. They didn't get to define me anymore. That night, I called Sarah and told her about the letter. "They're unbelievable," she said. "But you're stronger than they think. Keep going, Emma." I did. I threw myself into my studies, my work, my life. I started saving again, bit by bit, and even went on a date with a kind doctor from the hospital, Mark, who made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. My parents weren't done with me yet. They never were. 6 months into my new life, I was starting to feel like myself again. My master's program was intense but fulfilling, and Mark and I were cautiously exploring something real. My apartment, once a symbol of my sacrifices, was now a sanctuary, plants on the windowsill, books stacked on every surface, a space that was mine. But the past has a way of clawing its way back. It started with a knock on my door one Saturday morning. I opened it to find Lila standing there, her hair dyed a garish purple, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She looked thinner, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Emma," she said, her voice small. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, stunned. She dropped her bag on the floor and collapsed onto my couch, her bravado gone. New York didn't work out, she said, staring at her hands. The art scene's brutal, and I messed up. I waited, my arms crossed. Part of me wanted to comfort her. She was my sister, after all, but another part remembered every dollar I'd sent, every insult she'd thrown. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She told me the story in fragments. The famous artist was a scam, the program a money grab. She'd spent everything, my parents' loan, her savings, even money she'd borrowed from friends. Mom and Dad are furious, she said. They told me to come to you. Said you'd fix it. I laughed, sharp and incredulous. Fix it? Lila, I'm not your bank. I told them I was done. Her eyes widened, like she couldn't comprehend the word no, but you always help. You're Emma. You fix things. Not anymore, I said, my voice steady. You need to figure this out. Get a job, pay your debts. I'm not bailing you out. She stared at me, tears welling. You're really going to let me fail? You're not failing, I said. You're learning. There's a difference. She left an hour later, her bag heavier with my refusal. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was lighter this time. I wasn't her keeper. I called Sarah afterward, needing to vent. She showed up expecting a handout. I said, like nothing's changed. She's their monster, Sarah replied. They created this. You did the right thing. A week later, I got another call from Mom. No greeting, just, Lila's back home, and we're in trouble. The bank's threatening to foreclose. You need to help us. I gripped the phone, my resolve hardening. No, you took out that loan. You deal with it. You're heartless, she spat. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done. I shot back. You used me. You chose Lila over me, and now you're paying the price. I'm not. I hung up, my heart racing but my conscience clear. For the first time, I felt powerful. I wasn't their doormat anymore. But the victory was bittersweet. They were still my family, and watching them spiral hurt more than I expected. At therapy, Dr. Nguyen helped me unpack it. You're grieving, she said. Not just for the family you had, but for the one you thought you could have. She was right. I'd spent years chasing their approval, believing if I gave enough, they'd love me the way they loved Lila. Letting go of that hope was like losing a limb, but it was also freeing. I started focusing on what I could control, my career, my relationships, my future. Mark invited me to dinner at his place that weekend, and for the first time in months, I felt light. We cooked together, laughed, and talked about dreams I'd buried long ago. But as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a new text from Dad. We're selling the house. This is on you. The words stung, but I didn't reply. They could blame me all they wanted. I was done carrying their burdens. The next year was a turning point. I graduated from my master's program with honors, landed a promotion to head nurse, and moved into a better apartment with a view of Lake Michigan. Mark and I were steady now, not quite living together, but close. My life was finally mine, built on my terms. But my parents' shadow lingered. They sold the house, just as Dad had threatened. Sarah told me they'd moved into a cramped rental in a less desirable part of town. Lila's still living with them, still unemployed. I felt a twinge of pity, but it was fleeting. They'd made their choices, and I was learning to live with mine. Then came the family reunion, an annual event hosted by Aunt Karen. I hadn't planned to go, too much risk of seeing my parents. But Sarah convinced me. You can't hide forever, she said. Show them you're thriving. I arrived at Aunt Karen's house, my stomach in knots. The backyard was filled with cousins, aunts, uncles, the air thick with barbecue smoke and laughter. I spotted my parents across the lawn, looking older, smaller. Lila was there too, her hair back to its natural brown, her eyes downcast. I braced myself and walked over. Emma, Mom said, her voice flat. Didn't expect you. I almost didn't come, I said, meeting her gaze. But this is my family too. Dad grunted, sipping his beer. Lila avoided my eyes. The tension was palpable, but I didn't back down. I chatted with relatives, shared stories about my promotion, my new apartment. Every smile felt like defiance. They saw me, not the doormat, but the woman I'd become. Later, Aunt Karen pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, she said. You broke free. Not everyone does. Her words stayed with me as I drove home. Breaking free hadn't been easy. It meant losing the only family I'd known, but it also meant finding myself. I wasn't perfect. I still grieved, still doubted, but I was enough. A month later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Lila, her voice shaky. "Emma, I need to talk." "I'm sorry." I was stunned. Lila had never apologized, not once. "For what?" I asked, cautious. "For everything," she said. "For taking you for granted, for letting Mom and Dad use you. I'm trying to change. I got a job, nothing fancy, just at a coffee shop, but I'm trying." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to rebuild something, but another part wasn't ready. "I'm glad you're trying," I said finally. "But I need time." "I get it," she said, her voice breaking. "I just wanted you to know." After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing. Lila's apology was a crack in the wall between us, but it didn't erase the years of hurt. I wasn't sure if I could trust her, or if I even wanted to. But the call stayed with me, a small spark of hope in a story I thought was over. At therapy, I talked it through with Dr. Nguyen. "You don't have to decide now," she said. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing what's best for you." I nodded, feeling the weight of that choice. I wasn't ready to let Lila back in, but I was open to the possibility. For now, that was enough. Life moved forward, but the past wasn't done with me. A year after the reunion, I was thriving, my career was soaring, Mark and I were planning a trip to Europe, and I'd started mentoring young nurses at the hospital. But every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering about my parents, about Lila, about the family I'd lost. Then came the email. It was from Dad, the subject line blank. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button, but curiosity won. "Emma," it read, "we need to talk. Lila's in trouble, real trouble. We're at our wits' end. Please come to the house." My first instinct was to ignore it. They'd burned me too many times. But the words real trouble gnawed at me. Against my better judgment, I drove to their rental in Aurora, a squat, faded house far from the grandeur of their old place. Mom opened the door, her face lined with worry. Dad sat at a wobbly kitchen table, Lila nowhere in sight. "Where's Lila?" I asked, staying near the door. "She's in rehab," Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She got mixed up with some bad people in New York. Drugs. We didn't know until it was too late." My stomach dropped. Lila, for all her flaws, had never been that reckless. "What happened?" I asked, sitting despite myself. Dad explained. After New York, Lila spiraled. The art scam crushed her confidence, and she turned to pills to cope. They'd found her unconscious a month ago, overdosed. She was in a facility now, but the bills were piling up, and they couldn't pay. "We're not asking for money," Mom said quickly, seeing my expression. We need you to talk to her. She listens to you." I wanted to laugh. Lila listened to me? She'd spent years resenting me. But the look in their eyes, desperate, broken, stopped me. "I'll think about it," I said, standing. "But don't expect miracles." I left, my mind a storm. Part of me wanted to wash my hands of them, but another part couldn't let go. Lila was my sister, flawed and selfish, but still my sister. I called Sarah, who urged me to be cautious. "They're pulling you back in," she warned. "Don't let them." I visited Lila the next week, at a rehab center an hour away. She looked frail, her eyes sunken but clear. "Emma," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "Why am I here, Lila?" She cried then, raw and unfiltered. She told me about the drugs, the shame, the way our parents' blind support had left her unprepared for failure. "I know I hurt you," she said. "I was jealous. You were always so strong, and I wasn't." Her words hit hard. I'd never seen her as jealous, just entitled. But hearing her admit it softened something in me. "You can be strong too," I said. "But you have to want it." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I'm trying. I really am." I didn't forgive her that day, but I listened. And when I left, I felt a shift. Not trust, not yet, but a willingness to see where this could go. Lila's recovery was slow, but she stuck with it. I visited her every few weeks, keeping my distance emotionally, but showing up. She was different now, humbler, more aware of her flaws. She talked about getting a real job after rehab, maybe going back to school. I wanted to believe her, but trust was a bridge I wasn't ready to cross. My parents, though, were another story. They called more often, their tone softer but still laced with expectation. Lila's doing better, Mom would say, then pause, as if waiting for me to offer something. Money, time, anything. I didn't. I'd learned my lesson. One evening, Mark and I were cooking dinner when my phone rang. It was Dad. Emma, we're moving to Florida, he said, no preamble. The cost of living's cheaper there. We're selling everything and starting over. I was stunned. What about Lila? She's coming with us. She's out of rehab, and we think a fresh start will help. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, anger, sadness. They were leaving, taking Lila with them, and I wasn't invited. Not that I wanted to go, but the exclusion stung. Good luck, I said, my voice flat. I hope it works out. After I hung up, Mark pulled me into a hug. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. It's like they're running away, but I'm the one who's free. He kissed my forehead. You are. And you've got me. That night, I dreamed of the old house, the one they'd sold. In the dream, I was a kid again, running through the halls, Lila chasing me, both of us laughing. When I woke, my cheeks were wet. I grieved for that version of us, the one that might have been if things had been different. A month later, Lila called. She was in Florida now, working part-time at a bookstore. It's not much, she said, but it's honest. I'm trying to make things right, Emma. I want us to be sisters again. I didn't respond right away. The hurt was still there, a scar that hadn't fully healed. But I thought of her in rehab, the way she'd looked at me with hope, not entitlement. Let's take it slow, I said. But I'm open to trying. She cried, and for the first time, I didn't feel manipulated. Maybe this was real. Maybe we could rebuild something, not the same, but new. At therapy, Dr. Nguyen smiled when I told her. You're setting boundaries, she said. That's strength, Emma. You're choosing what family means to you. I nodded, feeling the truth of it. Family wasn't just blood. It was the people who showed up, who respected you. Sarah, Aunt Karen, Mark, they were my family now too. 2 years after the fight that changed everything, I stood in my new office at the hospital, a corner space with a view of the city skyline. I was 32 now, a nurse manager, my name on a plaque by the door. Mark and I were engaged, planning a small wedding in the spring. My life was full, but the scars of my family's rejection still lingered, faint but present. Lila and I talked regularly now, mostly texts and the occasional call. She was still in Florida, taking community college classes and working at the bookstore. She'd started painting again, but this time for herself, not for fame. Our conversations were cautious but warm, like two people learning to trust each other again. My parents, though, were a different story. We exchanged holiday cards, brief and polite, but the closeness we'd once had was gone. I'd accepted that. One day, Lila sent me a package, a small painting, vibrant and abstract, with a note, for Emma, who taught me what strength looks like. I hung it in my living room, a reminder of how far we'd both come. At the hospital, I mentored young nurses, many of them struggling to find their footing. I saw myself in them, the exhaustion, the self-doubt, and I made it my mission to lift them up. I thought of my parents often, not with anger anymore, but with clarity. They'd chosen Lila's dreams over mine, but in doing so, they'd forced me to choose myself. And I had. One evening, Mark and I were walking by the lake, the city lights glittering on the water. You ever think about reaching out to your parents? He asked, his hand warm in mine. Sometimes, I said, but I don't need their approval anymore. I've got everything I need right here. He smiled, pulling me close. You're incredible, you know that? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. The journey hadn't been easy. Losing my family, rebuilding myself, learning to let go, but it was mine. And for the first time, I was proud of it. As we walked, I thought of Lila's painting, of the colors that spoke of hope and healing. My family had tried to break me, but they'd only made me stronger. I wasn't the responsible one anymore, or the doormat, or the ATM. I was Emma, flawed, fierce, and finally free.